Welcome to The Heart of Health Live. There's a place for modern medicine in your life. Learn to use it correctly by getting your toughest questions answered on today's broadcast. Discover modern medicine's strengths and weaknesses. Lifestyle medicine opens the door to optimum health and healing. How you live and what you eat can profoundly affect mind and body. Learn simple solutions to complex problems. God provides the ultimate healing we all desire. He wants us healthy and happy. We just need to understand His plan for our lives and live accordingly. And now, live from Studio 1A in Chattanooga, Tennessee, here's your Heart of Health host, Dr. James Markham.
Welcome, everyone. We're glad you've joined us. We have a little bit different program this week on Heart of Health Live, but I think you will enjoy it. I think you will learn a lot about it. And we have some guests with us today, Jim and Valerie Hunt. And Jim and Valerie Hunt, they've both been through a disease process. They've had some ups and downs and all arounds, and they're going to talk about this. And the reason I think this is so important is because many of you out there have gone through these same things that the Hunts have gone through. You'll want to listen and hear their story. I think it's going to be one of hope and encouragement. Jim Hunt had trigeminal neuralgia, which is a condition affecting one of the nerves that comes out of the brain. It affects him, and it can be a very painful situation. We're going to talk about this. We're also going to talk about how the disease process affects the entire family. It just doesn't affect the person that gets it. It affects the wife, the kids, the extended family, the work, everybody. So we're just glad you joined us, and I hope this is something you can identify with. Usually we have lots of callers call into our website, but today, we're not going to take a lot of callers unless you just think you just have to ask a question or give a content. So we're going to hold back our callers a little bit this evening, but you can certainly go to our website. That's heartwiseministries.org to put in your questions or concerns, and I'm sure you're going to get a lot of information. Now, we're going to not only talk about the disease process and all the things, both bad and good, that can happen, but we're also going to talk about how God leads throughout the process. Even though sometimes when it's happening, we don't see His hand working. We're going to talk about how we want to be involved with the ultimate physician that can provide permanent healing one way or the others. Because there's some out there that might be suffering and they might be thinking they can have nothing done. But you know what? We can always turn to the ultimate healer, our relationship with God, for permanent healing. So I hope you stay with us. We got a very interesting program. We're going to be back with Jim and Valerie Hunt after this break, so stay with us. Don't go away. You'll be glad you did. We're going to be right back.
The Heart of Health Live will return in just a moment.
The Heart of Health Live is brought to you by Heartwise Ministries.
Hello, I'm Dr. Tim Jennings with your Mental Health Minute. Would you like to experience better physical and mental health? Then consider volunteering in your community. Studies have shown that youth who give of their time to help others perform better in school, have greater self-confidence, and are more likely to become leaders in society than those who do not. And amongst adults, those who volunteer experience better physical and mental health, lower rates of disability while maintaining their autonomy as they age. And amazingly, these benefits persisted even after taking into account baseline limitations, socioeconomic status, health status, employment, exercise, smoking, and marital status. When we volunteer to help others, we activate the brain's love circuits, which calm the brain's fear circuits, reducing inflammation, thereby reducing physical and mental illness. To be smart requires a healthy brain, so be smart, live to give.
To learn more about mental health, visit comeandreason.com.
My life is full of statistics. Thing is, I could have dropped out of school and become one myself, but I didn't, because I had people that believed in me. Here's another statistic. 7,000 students drop out every school day. That's one every 26 seconds. It's time that students know that we believe in them.
Inspire a student and share your message of support at boostup.org.
I'm Dr. James Markham, and I talk to patients every day who want to know the truth in healthcare. On our website, heartwiseministries.org, you can have your questions answered. You can read my blog where I talk about interesting and controversial subjects in medicine. You might choose to go to the radio or television sections and learn more about all sorts of health topics. take the time and go to heartwiseministries.org.
Medicines That Kill from cardiologist Dr. James Markham is now available. In his newest book, Dr. Markham explains why he believes that medications may very well be the #1 cause of death in America. Medicines That Kill uncovers the hidden risks associated with modern pharmaceuticals and outlines the biblical plan for physical and spiritual health. To find out how to get your copy, visit our website at heartwiseministries.org or call us toll-free at 855-644-3278.
You've got questions, we've got answers on the Heart of Health Live. Welcome back.
If you've just joined us, we're going to have a special program today. We're specifically going to be talking about a patient that's gone through a horrific disease. Many of you out there can relate to this. Others might want to hear this in case they ever have a problem. We hope you never do. We're with Jim and Valerie Hunt, and thank you for joining us on Heart of Health Live.
Thanks for having us on.
Now, one of the key things that I always try to do is I want people to be comfortable, okay? No nervousness, just everyone relax, take a deep breath. And I know it's hard when you're in front of the cameras, but just have a good time. Because, you know, we're reaching all sorts of people, and many people might have the exact same problem that you've had. Some people might experience it. And, you know, by sharing with each other, by sharing and giving, you actually change your chemistry.
Right.
You make endorphins. So Jim, tell me, tell our audience, how did you first know that something wasn't right? How did you feel inside?
Early in 2008, January or February, I started noticing a sensation in my rear molars.
What's a molar?
Okay, your back teeth.
Okay, back teeth.
On the left side, and there was sort of an electrical shock sensation, but it would migrate from bottom to top, but always on that left side. And it didn't really hurt that bad, so I thought, when I get my 6 months checkup at the dentist, I will ask and see, you know, to check it out and see if there was something. I thought possibly some type of filling or something, maybe interfering, causing an electrical discharge.
Now, was it there all the time or just sometimes?
Just sometimes.
Okay.
Not all the time. But after, you know, the dentist checked, x-rayed, he couldn't find anything. And then progressively, it became worse. And at times, it was like a very severe electrical shock. I would describe it sort of as a stun gun being held, you know, to the left side of my head. And from my ear to the top of my scalp, I could get these really violent sensations that would just, I mean, stop you just like you had been electrocuted with, you know, with high voltage.
Did it happen once a day or twice a day as it progressed, or?
It usually seemed to be in the evening when I would come home from work, and a lot of times during meals especially it seemed to get worse.
Okay. Now, I guess, how long would one of these jolts last?
Initially, they might last for 15 or 20 seconds. But progressively, I would say sometimes as long as 5 minutes, and it was just unbearable at times. I would literally hit myself with my fist to try to get it to stop. I didn't know what was causing it. I knew it was nerve related,
right,
but there was just no relief. And I'm a person who never had headaches, never even taken an aspirin or anything like that. So it was just really frustrating to try to figure out what this was.
Now, so was anything sort of trigger these things, or did it just?
Not really. At that point, later on, anything like air blowing across my face, taking a shower when I would wash my hair and water running on the side of my scalp would trigger it. Sometimes just touching my lips. Shaving at times was impossible.
Now, Valerie, I guess you never saw him like this before. So what were you thinking?
Well, at first, you know, I tried to help. I said, well, maybe I can rub his back. Maybe, you know, can I rub your head and see if that'll help? And nothing. I mean, nothing I did made any difference. So we really, my children and I, we felt helpless because nothing that we could do would help alleviate the pain. And it was really hard to see him in pain.
It started about 2008.
Right.
And did it gradually get worse?
It did. I guess in June, someone suggested that I might see a chiropractor because, at times my left shoulder would bother me, and playing high school football and things like that, I had injuries.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there, okay? So you went to the dentist first.
Right.
And a friend told you to go to chiropractor.
Right.
What did your wife want you to do? First.
She wanted me to go to my regular doctor,
Okay.
but I had seen him between those two times, and he really couldn't identify exactly what it was.
So you didn't think now inside, okay? Lots of people have pains and stuff.
Right.
Were you worried that something could be dangerous going on?
I was. I did a lot of research on the internet, looked for symptoms and things like that at several major medical websites, Johns Hopkins and places like that, and had looked at trigeminal neuralgia, and it seemed very much like that's what I possibly could have.
So early on, you sort of maybe knew more than anybody else early on.
At least I suspected.
Okay, so you had a little suspicion going on. That's very interesting because sometimes the patient, I always think, is the best doctor when they become actively involved.
Right.
Okay, so let's continue. So you went to the chiropractor. What happened
to
then?
a chiropractor, and he did spinal alignment, the TIMS electrical shock between. Would put electrode patch here on the back of my neck and lower jaw for about a 10-minute session. And there was a period for maybe 2 weeks that it stopped. So I thought, well, possibly, maybe it is just, a nerve being pinched or something like that. But then as time progressed over a period of about 6 weeks, I was going every week. It seems like the electrical shock would actually aggravate and cause more pain and trigger the pain at times.
Now, did he or she give you a diagnosis yet?
No, not really.
So we just have pain, and and they, and like I say, chiropractors really work to adjust things and take pressure off nerves. Now, were you trying to do anything else yourself to help with this, ice or food or anything different? Or?
Not really. At times I would get Valerie to, massage my shoulder, things like that. And any type of physical work that I did, using a garden tiller, anything like that, working with my hands, seemed to make it worse as well.
Okay. Now, how was your work affected? Were you able to still get through the day at work? I know you're a teacher. And
yeah, this was primarily in the summer when I was going through this, but as things progressed, when I would lie down at night, the pain would seem to worsen. So I would prop myself up, elevate myself at about a 45-degree angle, which was a little bit better, but still I would usually end up leaving the bed because I was afraid I was keeping Valerie up, and we're both teachers, and I could always get by on less sleep than she could, but it progressed to the point that I actually bought a chair or a seat for a car and set it up in my den. And a lot of times I could sleep better in an upright position than I could even reclining. I have a recliner, but anytime I lean back past that 45-degree angle, the pain seemed to get worse.
So let's back up. So it started what month in about 2008? So for the first time you noticed it.
February.
So basically now we got February. Now we're well into the summer.
Right.
You've had one treatment by a chiropractor.
Well, it was a treatment of about 6 sessions weekly.
And we're now into the summer, and it's still going on. Seems to be getting worse.
Right.
Okay. Well, we're going to hold that thought right now because we're about to go to break. Okay. After the break, we're going to talk to Valerie Hunt. Disease not only affects the person, but it affects the entire family. We're going to see what she's thinking after we come back from break. We're talking with Jim and Valerie Hunt about their experience with a debilitating disease. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
The Heart of Health Live will return in just a moment.
I'd like to think that one day, when we get to heaven, we're going to see a list of people like Jared and Susan, who were introduced to Jesus because of something we said, or maybe it was as simple as a passing smile. But these people will look into their past and be able to say, I'm here because of you. Recently, you may have heard that Heartwise Ministries has begun spreading the gospel to the young, the old, the sick, and the healthy using this very television program, but we need your help. We want to take this type of medical programming to the non-believer and the person who has closed themselves off to traditional forms of outreach. If you believe as we do and want to support Heartwise so that together we can count more names on the Tree of Life, please consider donating today at heartwiseministries.org. That's heartwiseministries.org.
Medicines That Kill from cardiologist Dr. James Marcum is now available. In his newest book, Dr. Marcum explains why he believes that medications may very well be the #1 cause of death in America. Medicines That Kill uncovers the hidden risks associated with modern pharmaceuticals and outlines the biblical plan for physical and spiritual health. To find out how to get your copy, visit our website at heartwiseministries.org or call us toll-free at 855-644-3278.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
You've got questions, we've got answers on the Heart of Health Live. Welcome back.
I'm glad you're staying with us, and if you just join us, I'm going to tell you what we're talking about. We're talking about what it's like to have a disease, a diagnosis, the whole process. And Valerie, you've heard, your husband has been in pain since February. Now we're going into the summer. I'm sure other people can identify with what you're feeling inside. So just tell us a little bit about what's going on in your brain and how you guys are relating to this.
Well, it's really, really hard to watch someone in pain, and your husband, and not be able to do anything about it. And sometimes, especially because it would be triggered at a meal, we'd be sitting at supper, and the girls and I would, he'd all of a sudden be in pain and grabbing his jaw and crying out, and sometimes he would get up and actually have to leave the room, and the girls would just look at me with tears in their eyes and say, "Do something, Mommy, do something." And I didn't know what to do. So the only thing I knew to do was call a doctor. So I told him, I said, "You really need to go and see your doctor or see someone." So that was the first thing I did, was try to encourage him to go and seek help.
Right. Now, it's now past the long enough, he's got the definition of chronic pain. Mm-hmm. We still don't have a diagnosis. It seems to be getting worse. Yeah. How is it affecting your relationship? It can't be normal. People that have people that are sick at home can't have, they don't communicate. It seems like sometimes they just focus on that one thing. I'm sure you're not talking about the vacation you're going on, or the fun things you want to do, or the kids' problems.
And that's hard, because then there would be times where we wanted to do things, the girls want to do things, and he would say, "I can't. I just can't go." And so he was very, very good to us in that he would just stay home, and we would go and do things, but we always felt very guilty and very lonely that he didn't get to participate in those things. Even sometimes when we were doing things at home, he couldn't, because he just didn't feel good and it hurt. Or if we'd go to my family's house or his family's house, he would go and eat in another room sometimes because he didn't want to be with the family eating and feel that pain.
I think that's such important to know, that disease not only affects the person, but it affects everybody. And sometimes, you wish you give it to me. I'll take it. I don't want to see someone I love have that pain.
Well, and sometimes, because I think when you're in pain, you're not always thinking straight,
Right.
So I don't think he realized sometimes, that, I think I did a lot of the seeking help for him, because he almost had given up hope. Well, he'd read online, all these people have never gotten any help for this. They still have it after 10 years.
Right.
And I would look up and I would see, this doctor will treat that, and we both had kind of leaned toward a diagnosis of trigeminal neuralgia, and my grandmother had had trigeminal neuralgia and had had surgery that helped it. So I kept thinking, there's got to be something out there that can solve this. It's not unsolvable.
But it really does. Chronic pain and chronic disease affects your brain. I mean, we know that the amygdala, the part of the brain makes chronic stresses turned on, and you just can't process and think straight, so to speak. So that's good that you have someone to go to that can sort of see it from a different light.
Well, and it's really scary too, because it's called the suicide disease, because it's such severe pain that it makes the person feel like they'd rather be dead. And when he would say things like that in front of the kids, you know, I just shoot me, or, and he has guns. So that was really scary to us, and I would just pray, Lord, please help us find a solution. Please just take this away, you know.
So you mentioned prayer. So that was part of the treatment you thought for early?
Oh, definitely.
Well, see, a lot of people, believe it or not, when they're sick, you know, they want to blame God. They don't want to turn to God. Right. But that's sort of the person, you know, you need to go to, I think, right away with anything. But I find it very interesting that you sort of had the diagnosis already. Now, Jim, tell me about some of the different doctors, and, you know, we're in the summer now. Where did you go from here?
Well, as it progressed on into fall, it began to get worse. So I went back to my regular physician, and I guess it was actually part of my annual physical, you know, where they would do an EKG, blood pressure and all that. Well, the nurse, you know, would do the blood pressure, and he came in, looked at my chart, and he says, there must be something wrong. There's no way your blood pressure is that high. So he would take it and he'll say it's normal. I said, but when she took it, I was in pain.
There you go.
And that pain would just make my blood pressure go through the roof, so to speak. I even felt like that it was affecting my heart at times, because I would tense up so much. It was just hard to relax, and that may have been some of the shoulder pain, things like that, because you just tend to get very, very tense when you're in pain like that. So he sent me to a local neurologist, and she sort of diagnosed it as trigeminal neuralgia with atypical facial pain. Okay. That was the diagnosis.
So at least you got a diagnosis now.
Right.
When did you go to the ENT? Because you also went to an ENT.
Let's see, the ENT was, that was in January, December, or January, late 08, early 09.
Okay.
My regular doctor sent me there as well, just to make sure.
Look everything.
Right. And was very thorough, but he didn't find anything wrong. So
he diagnosed it as TMJ.
Right.
Okay.
So the doctor gave me a really strong injection of steroids, and, you know, just in the hip, and I guess that's the first relief I had had in 6 months or so.
Okay.
And for probably 2 months, I felt almost normal again.
Okay. I think that's very interesting here. So you finally got a diagnosis, okay? They gave you the steroids. Now, you know, the steroids calm down inflammation.
Right.
So now I would be thinking, if it was me, that, you know, there's something inflamed in the body, okay, that follows a nerve pathway. So I would be right on with this diagnosis. But at the same time, I would think, you know, the steroids are going to wear off.
Right.
And then the inflammation is going to come back. I don't know if I want to take the risk of being on steroids the rest of my life.
It's a lot of damage you can do to your body with steroids.
So what happened after you saw the neurologist, the ENT doctors?
Well, the local neurologist did not do surgery, so I contacted Vanderbilt and made an appointment to go over there. And
well, let me rephrase that.
Yeah. Okay.
He did not contact.
Okay.
Somebody contacted.
Okay.
He was in so much pain.
Right.
And the doctor, I mean, you go for an appointment, and the doctor says, oh, we'll get you an appointment with an ENT.
Right.
So it's a month.
Right.
So he's in pain for a month. And then we get an appointment with the ENT. He says, well, it's TMJ. He gives him medication. I go back to his doctor, and I say, that's not working. Is there someone else? We get the neurologist.
Right.
Appointment way down the road. And so none of those were working. So it was probably a year now has gone by before we went to Vanderbilt.
So you're 2009 now?
At least before we went to Vanderbilt.
So
and I just kept calling his doctor. I would call in tears and I would say, please do something. He's still in pain and
now,
it's horrible.
I might have said, well, let's try some more steroids. Did anyone think of that? At least to buy him some time?
I had asked for that. I actually said the steroids seem to work. Can you do that? So he gave him a steroid pack, which didn't seem to help. It didn't do what the shot had done.
Yeah. And I actually did go to the emergency room
twice.
3 or 4 months later. Seems like it was in March or April, and all I could do was sit on the couch and literally try to hold my head in a certain position, afraid to move anything because the pain was so bad.
Now, are you still eating at this time?
There was a period where I probably lost 30 pounds because at times the tip of my tongue, anything that touched the tip of my tongue, even at times talking was so painful, it was unbearable, which I had a lot of problems with that, you know, at school. Being a teacher and not being able to talk is almost an impossible task.
But his doctor had said, you know, I said, is there anyone we can go to? I said, this doctor, the neurologist isn't a neurosurgeon.
Right. Hold that thought. You also stay. We're going to unfold this mystery. And let me tell you, I'm not going to tell you how it ends, but he's here talking to us and he hasn't grabbed his head once. Stay with us. We're going to be right back.
The Heart of Health Live will return in just a moment.
Could It Be This Simple changed my life. What an amazing and solid yet fulfilling and liberating message Dr. Jennings provides. I loved it.
It is liberating. It frees your mind from all your mental turmoil and teaches you what is really going on.
This book is amazing and makes so much sense. It shows God as a God of love rather than an arbitrary, exacting God.
I am so grateful that a friend suggested I read Could It Be This Simple? It has helped me fine-tune my thinking. This book not only helps the mind to heal, but helps to liberate the emotions by bringing them into balance. You will be captivated with the case studies liberally sprinkled throughout this small, easy-to-read book. I dare you to read it.
Get your copy of Could It Be This Simple? A biblical model for healing the mind at Amazon.com or wherever books are sold.
I'm Dr. James Markham, and I talk to patients every day who want to know the truth in healthcare. On our website, heartwiseministries.org, you can have your questions answered. You can read my blog where I talk about interesting and controversial subjects in medicine. You might choose to go to the radio or television sections and learn more about all sorts of health topics. Take the time and go to heartwiseministries.org. Hi, I'm Dr. James Markham, speaker, director of Heartwise Ministries. And at Heartwise, our goal is to bring people into a relationship with the Heavenly Father using modern medicine and the healing principles found in the Bible. We teach people that there is a place for modern medicine and a healthy lifestyle, but it is in a relationship with their Creator where ultimate healing can occur. Over the past years, our ability to share this message of truth, love, and healing around the world has increased exponentially. But to continue this steady growth, we need your help. We are looking and praying for 100 individuals willing to give $1,000 a year. If the Spirit is moving you to become one of the Heartwise 100, won't you consider donating online today at heartwiseministries.org.
You've got questions, we've got answers on the Heart of Health Live. Welcome back.
We've been talking with Jim and Valerie Hunt about a disease that I think we finally got a diagnosis, trigeminal neuralgia, but we've had a couple different diagnoses as we've talked. And Jim, you know, you're about ready to see a neurosurgeon for this condition that sort of started in 2008. But what are, disease affects the entire body,
Right.
But also, you have a problem, but it also affects your brain, the way you think, the way you relate, the way you're stressed.
Yes.
What are some of the other symptoms, and Val, you can jump in too, of things that you noticed that wasn't right with him? And I know you're not thinking right at this time. Right. You're not being rational. But I guess the first question is, inside, did you start feeling depressed and hopeless and that kind of feeling?
Very depressed. You know, I felt like with my students at school, as much as I tried, I felt like they weren't getting 100% of what I was used to giving. With my family, just not having the energy, you know, sleep deprivation. There would be nights when I would sleep less than 2 hours. So just being very short-tempered with things that would go on, being frustrated so easily about things that would come up. And I knew it was affecting me and the way I reacted to my children and Valerie as well.
How was your sleep?
There would be nights where maybe the first 30 minutes I could sleep, but I would always wake up, usually no longer than 30 minutes later, try changing positions, maybe back to sleep for 5 minutes. I would look at the clock, then right back up in pain. So it seemed to help if I would get up and walk around for 10 or 15 minutes, change, you know, where I was sleeping from the bed to the couch, but usually no more than an hour at most, and in some nights probably less than 2 hours for the entire time.
So Valerie, the man you loved was having a whole personality change. He was someone else. Mm-hmm. How did you cope with this?
Well,
I mean, you got to do something, or are you going to turn
like I said, we tried. There just wasn't, you know, no matter what we tried to do, the kids and I, it didn't help. So when I would offer things and I would say, can we this, can we that? And so sometimes we would just go. I would say, you know, he would say just, if we needed to go somewhere, we would go ahead and go. And I always felt really bad that we weren't home, but there wasn't anything that we could do, and he wouldn't let us do anything. So that's when I guess I became his advocate with doctors. And
so depression set in, you know, you're getting worse on numerous levels. We talked, where did you talked earlier about the neurosurgeon. Did you finally get up to see the neurosurgeon?
We finally got the process rolling to get to go to Vanderbilt. His doctor had actually recommended Mayo Clinic, but we couldn't, at that time we didn't know if we could get approval from insurance to do that. So we could get approval within our network to go to Vanderbilt. And he got us in with a neurosurgeon, but he didn't even look at the scans. He kind of said, yeah, you probably have trigeminal neuralgia, and he did all the talking. He never listened to anything we really said. Gave him medication and sent us home.
So that was unfortunately.
Right, and the medication he had given me, I had been on Lyrica, which my regular physician had put me on and said, well, let's try this. Right. It sort of, you know, helps inflammation, things like that. But the medication that the doctor at Vanderbilt put me on, it was so strong that I was supposed to build up to it over a period of several weeks. And probably fourth or fifth day that I was taking this medication, I was on my way to work early in the morning, and I just sort of came to and was 30 feet off of the road. But for the grace of God, you know, I would have been killed because I had looked intentionally to see, you know, if I had gone off the road anywhere else, would I have survived? Because there are pine trees, culverts, I mean, so I owe that to God.
And I think sometimes, you know, you think that this was a 4-year process of pain. And I would pray and I would pray and I would think, God isn't answering our prayers. We're not finding any help. We're not getting any hope. And yet I think God spared his life. Right. And at school, I'm a teacher, and at school, the teachers, the other teachers, the faculty, we prayed every day for Jim. At several points during this time, we actually got the entire school body, all the kids, down on their knees and prayed for him. And they did a prayer walk in which they included him. And I think we didn't realize it until we look back now on it, that God was working through all of that to get to where we ended up in our journey. He was there the whole time. We just didn't see it.
Were you ever worried that he might hurt himself?
Very, very much.
Now, did you see a psychiatrist or anyone that would help you to cope through this?
No, tough guy, John Wayne.
Okay. But did you ever have those thoughts briefly cross your mind?
I did, but because of my kids, I could not do that to my family.
Now, after you had this near-death experience in the car, did you realize that sort of God was there?
Yes.
Okay.
I said, there's got to be a purpose. There's a reason.
So when did, we started back in 2008. When did that sort of near-death thing?
After 2010.
2010.
So we've now gone on for 2 years with chronic pain. I guess you've tried different medicines.
He'd been to about 3 dentists for TMJ treatment. He'd been to a neurologist. He'd been to the neurosurgeon. He'd been to another neurologist. I kept going back to the doctor. Please send us somewhere else. Been to the ENT. Been to another neurologist who thought about doing a Botox injection into the occipital nerve, but insurance wouldn't approve that, so we didn't get that.
So there's a little frustration going on?
So then I went back again. I just kept looking online, and my mom said, well, trigeminal neuralgia, but his doctor really didn't think it was trigeminal neuralgia outright. He thought there were other things with it. And so my mom looked up something, and she said, oh, here's something at UT, this doctor, and it's a video, and he does this surgery. And I looked, and I said, that's it. And I thought UT Knoxville, and so did she, but it turned out it was University of Texas. So I thought, well, I'm going to look at UT and see if there's something. And I looked there, and I just kept praying, Lord, direct me to a doctor. And I saw one who'd been a neurosurgeon who'd been to Loma Linda University. I said, pick him. So we picked him.
Now, I'm going to stop before we finally get to, where you finally get to the right
well, this
person.
wasn't the right one yet.
Not yet, not the right one, okay. So man, you've gone through a lot. Insurance, frustrating, helpful, not helpful, ups, downs?
You have to exhaust everything within the system locally, then within the state of Tennessee before they will even consider anything as they describe or call out of network.
Okay, so you do that.
Well, when we get to the final, I'll tell you that story too, because
that sounds like a good story.
That was more my story.
Right. Yeah, because I hear stories about that all the time. And our healthcare system has its flaws here. Okay, but there's so many people out there that do have chronic disease and do have chronic pains, and their family suffers, and they're not getting relief. And they want some place to go. And I think that we've determined a couple things so far that can help everyone out. One is that you have the ultimate physician that you can go to, even though you don't understand how he's working.
Right.
And some people he heals at the end of a life too. Not everyone has relief of their pain, either mental or physically.
Right.
The two, that you are supporting each other. You haven't left each other, ran away from each other. Well, some people do that. In chronic pain, I'm out of here. Let me escape. And it sounds like you involved the whole community. It wasn't just you guys. It was the whole community.
My mother's church. I mean, every time I would go somewhere, my sister's house, we're all praying for you.
Yeah.
So,
So everyone's halting. And I must admit, you did go to a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of the people wanted to help. They just didn't know what to do.
Right, and I think that when we ended up with the right doctor in the end, like the one in Knoxville, I kept thinking, oh, this is the right one.
Yeah.
But first, his PA saw us. He didn't even see us.
Okay, well, we're going to go to break, and we're going to start getting to where they did find help soon. Stay with us. You're watching Heart of Health Live. Our website is heartwiseministries.org. I'm Dr. James Mark. We're talking with the Hunt, so stay with us. We're going to continue this story.
The Heart of Health Live will return in just a moment.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
I'd like to think that one day, when we get to heaven, we're going to see a list of people like Jared and Susan, who were introduced to Jesus because of something we said. Or maybe it was as simple as a passing smile. But these people will look into their past and be able to say, I'm here because of you. Recently, you may have heard that Heartwise Ministries has begun spreading the gospel to the young, the old, the sick, and the healthy using this very television program. But we need your help. We want to take this type of medical programming to the non-believer and the person who has closed themselves off to traditional forms of outreach. If you believe as we do and want to support Heartwise so that together we can count more names on the Tree of Life, please consider donating today at heartwiseministries.org. That's heartwiseministries.org.
Have you ever heard things about God that didn't make sense? Have you ever thought that science and Scripture cannot be reconciled? Have you heard ideas about God that scare you? Or are you just tired and confused? If you want answers to complex problems, if you want a testable, evidence-based understanding of God and the world around you, an understanding in which the Bible and science harmonize to reveal the reality that God is love all the time, then Come and Reason Ministries is for you. Hi, I'm Dr. Tim Jennings, board-certified psychiatrist, and Come and Reason Ministries is dedicated to helping you learn to discern, to stimulate you to think, to help hone and refine your ability to know the right from the wrong, the healthy from the unhealthy, and teach you how to experience healing of your mind, body, and relationships here and now. If you would like an evidence-based approach to knowing God, then visit us online at comeandreason.com.
You've got questions, we've got answers on the Heart of Health Live. Welcome back.
Well, we've had a lot of questions here about Jim Hunt. We haven't had many answers yet. Jim, tell me, how are you feeling, and where does it go from here? About the same?
Really not much change, back and forth. I think, to my regular physician, as many as 6-7 times in a year, but really no change in anything except dosage of medication.
And we're still in the year 2010, or are we gone to 2011?
All through 2011, up until spring of 2012.
Okay, and then what happened?
Well, I'll let Valerie tell you about her discovery for me.
After we went to the Knoxville neurosurgeon. He basically said atypical facial pain, didn't even see him, just was going to send us to an oral surgeon. And I was in tears, and I went to the doctor and I said, please do something else. Can we go to Mayo? And so we applied to go to Mayo. The doctor actually sent a letter to Mayo, and we got a letter back saying that we were denied as patients, that he was not going to see, they would not see him.
They give a reason?
No, they just said not at this time. So we don't know.
Okay.
We don't know. I look back on it, I think it was God.
Right.
It was not meant to be.
Right.
It just
They
wasn't
said
where we needed to be.
not urgent enough at this point today.
So I just had about given up, and I was talking to a friend, and she said, don't give up. There's got to be something out there, and God's can, he'll get you to it. So I left talking to her, sat down at my school computer, and just typed in trigeminal neuralgia, and up popped some lady's blog, and she was talking about her experience with it, just exactly like his. And then she said, so I went to the best. I went to Dr. Ben Carson at Johns Hopkins. And I said, Ben Carson, I know who he is.
Yeah.
We could go there. So I emailed her, got no response, and thought, why am I emailing her? I'm going to call Johns Hopkins. So I got information online and just called, thought I probably won't get a real person.
Right.
I got a lady in the office, and she said, told her my story, cried on the phone, and she said, well, honey, you have an email? And I said, yes, I do. And she said, I'm going to email you papers. You fill it out, you fax it to me, and we'll see what we can do.
Wow.
So I did. I got it all ready and went to fax it, and the fax didn't work. And I think that was all these instances where God just made the timing right, because I'd forgotten all about insurance. So I thought, I probably should make sure that's okay with insurance before we go up to Johns Hopkins for surgery or something. And so I went and contacted insurance, and 4 times insurance told me, yes, we'll pay for that.
Good.
And 4 times the doctor's office was told by the same insurance company, no, we won't pay for that. And so I finally had to go back to the insurance company and say, okay, what is it going to take for you to pay for it?
Right.
Get that procedure, then I could call the doctor and say, here's what you have to do to make that work. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. They'll just take no for an answer.
Right.
And when I went back to the insurance company and said, what does the doctor do to make this possible? They told me, and then I could tell the doctor's office, and it worked. And fortunately, I had an advocate at the doctor's office, a really sweet lady who listened to me cry and said, honey, it's okay, we'll make it work. So we got an appointment with Dr. Carson. They approved it when I finally was able to fax it, and we went up there June of 2012.
June 17th.
And
Okay.
another miracle in the whole process is that one of my best friends, her father works at Johns Hopkins, and he was able to find us a place to stay that was very, very reasonable and right across the street from the hospital. Wow. So we didn't have to try to find it. We just walked right in. And I said the whole time we were up there, I just felt like we were coasting on prayer. That we went in and were in and out of there in less than a few hours, and got to meet with him. And I'll let Jim tell you about meeting Dr. Carson.
When we just happened to get there early and walked in, and Dr. Carson had already been in surgery, and he walks in, he says, "Oh wow, you're here, that's great, come on back in the conference room." He talked to me for 5 minutes and asked me my symptoms, when I had my last pain, and I said, well, 5 minutes ago, And he says, well, did you bring any pictures with you? So I said, yeah, I've got my disc right here. So he's gone less than 5 minutes. He comes back and he says, I see at least 2 places I think that could be giving you problems and we can help you. So then he sat down and went through all the options, about 6 different ways that they could treat this. And I said, Dr. Carson, if this were you, what would you do? He said, well, I'd pray for the Lord to take this away from me. And I said, we've been doing that. And he told me to come see you. So he laughed.
There you go.
Just very humble man, very down to earth. And he said, I would do the microvascular decompression. He said, you don't have any other health problems. You're a good candidate, and you will have the longest lasting results from that. And we just felt like the weight of the world had been taken away.
Well, and what was truly amazing is that his assistant said, well, let me go see when we could schedule that. And this is in June, and I'm thinking, oh, great, this is Dr. Carson. We'll probably be several months down the road, like maybe December we'll get in for surgery. She came back in and she said, what about July 5th?
July 5th, wow.
And I said, we'll take it.
Now, microvascular decompression,
right.
I assume that that's just taking pressure off the nerves from tissue that's pushing in on it?
Right. They do an incision. They actually drill into the skull. I've got a nice little crease right here. And they go in and microscopically put very tiny little Teflon fillers, spacers between the nerve and blood vessels that are causing pressure on it. And I always assumed that, well, if it's a vessel or a vein, it seems like it would be a throbbing pain.
Yeah.
But they said no, that anything that irritates that nerve may cause it to fire anywhere from the base of your skull, anywhere on the left side of your head. The ringer nerve that goes around your teeth, and sometimes my front teeth would hurt, back teeth. So it can be anything on the left side of the face, even down into your neck, that it can affect.
So he looked at the MRI
Right.
is what he looked at, and he said, I think this is putting pressure on that nerve.
Exactly.
Because as you know, there's no blood test that makes this diagnosis. This is what we call a clinical diagnosis, the hardest one.
Well, his physician's assistant said the key to diagnosing this is for the doctor to listen. He said, if the doctors listen to your symptoms, know the disease, know what to look for, she said, we can tell in 5 minutes whether or not you have it, just by listening to what you've experienced.
And he also said that they had people who had suffered with this for 30 years. And I said, 4 years is nothing compared to 30. So, just to know that at least somebody was going to try something. And he talked about the different possibilities. He says you may be blind in your left eye. He said you could be deaf in your left ear. He said you could possibly even die anytime you do surgery, but he said, I haven't lost a patient yet. And I said,
That's good odds.
At this point, I really don't care.
Wow, what a wonderful story. So we're going to pick up after the surgery after we get back, but a couple of things that I find very important. Valerie, sounds like you had a great friend that encouraged you never to give up. And it sounds like don't accept no.
Right.
And I bet you, it seems like Valerie was more persistent than you were.
She was my advocate. I had given up.
Yeah. Don't accept no, and just keep. And the prayers are starting to be answered now. So things in God's time might not be hunt time.
Exactly.
Okay. And it sounds like Ben Carson listened to the story, knew that you had it, looked at the MRIs and said, this is something I can help with,
right,
and then presented you with the options. And I bet you must have started feeling encouragement and hope at that point.
Oh, absolutely. We were, just elated that, it's the first attempt that anybody, was willing to try rather than write a new prescription.
Okay, that's good. Well, we're going to come back after this break and finish up this remarkable story. And one question I'm going to ask them is, did they thank God before they got this good news, or did they thank God after they got this good news? I'm going to be right back. You're watching Heart of Health Live. I'm Dr. James Mark. We'll talk about the Hunts and a remarkable healing story that the ultimate physician led out the entire way. We're going to be right back.
The Heart of Health Live will return in just a moment.
I'm Dr. James Markham, and I talk to patients every day who want to know the truth in healthcare. On our website, heartwiseministries.org, you can have your questions answered. You can read my blog where I talk about interesting and controversial subjects in medicine. You might choose to go to the radio or television sections and learn more about all sorts of health topics. Take the time and go to heartwiseministries.org.
Medicines That Kill from cardiologist Dr. James Markham is now available. In his newest book, Dr. Markham explains why he believes that medications may very well be the #1 cause of death in America. Medicines That Kill uncovers the hidden risks associated with modern pharmaceuticals and outlines the biblical plan for physical and spiritual health. To find out how to get your copy, visit our website at heartwiseministries.org or call us toll-free at 855-644-3278.
Hi, I'm Dr. James Markham, speaker, director of Heartwise Ministries. And at Heartwise, our goal is to bring people into a relationship with the Heavenly Father using modern medicine and the healing principles found in the Bible. We teach people that there is a place for modern medicine and a healthy lifestyle, but it is in a relationship with their Creator where ultimate healing can occur. Over the past years, our ability to share this message of truth, love, and healing around the world has increased exponentially. But to continue this steady growth, we need your help. We are looking and praying for 100 individuals willing to give $1,000 a year. If the Spirit is moving you to become one of the Heartwise 100, won't you consider donating online today at heartwiseministries.org.
You've got questions, we've got answers on the Heart of Health Live. Welcome back.
Often when we're going through chronic pain and we don't hear God's voice right away, it's hard to say thank you. And that's why I brought that up, because I think it's so important that we thank God for being our God in the bad times and the good times. But I want you to, right now, let us, you don't have to answer that question, it's very personal, right. but let's give some good advice, both from the patient standpoint and the healthcare advocates. What can we do? What have you learned that you'd like to share with everyone? Some people that are going through this, insurances, multiple doctors, diseases, multiple medicines, no answers. Share with us.
I guess having someone to be an advocate for you when you are at the point with depression and mental fatigue and things like that is a godsend in itself. Valerie having the perseverance to stick with me and be understanding, I guess that's where the wedding vows,
There you go.
Through sickness and health, really, she followed those.
Yeah.
And I thank God for that, for her, and for finding an answer through her for me,
Valerie?
God Himself.
Well, I think that same kind of thing, there were times where I know that it might not have been so long if I had persevered at different points, but because he was like, there's nothing can be done, I'm not going to another doctor, I'm not doing this.
I would say that.
There was a part of me that would just say, okay, well, he doesn't want help, I'm not going to seek help for him, because I didn't know what to do either. And I was so thankful, like you said, for friends who encouraged me, and I didn't give up, I just kept looking. And I think the best advice is not to give up and to keep praying, because sometimes, I mean, as I look back now, I think, you know, if we had gone to one of those doctors and maybe they would have done some treatment or surgery different from what we experienced, and we wouldn't have had the best doctor that we could have had, and it might not have gone well, and God knew better than we did. And maybe that neurosurgeon who didn't see him at all in Knoxville really didn't even examine him, just came in and said, oh, it's atypical, we can't do anything for you. Maybe that was just what we needed to have exhausted all these other sources so we could get insurance to allow us to go there.
It's hard to think when you're going through it that God used this surgeon not looking at me to move me to the next stop of the road. Are you still having pains?
No, and it dawns on me when I take a shower, when I wake up from a night's sleep, just to say thank you, God, that I was able to sleep the entire night. I mean, to be able to shave or brushing my teeth was such an ordeal that the day doesn't go by when I can just brush my teeth and say thank you, God.
Wow. So after the surgery, after Ben Carson, I'm a big fan of Ben Carson, and I heard the prayer breakfast, and I think he's just a wonderful healer. So you haven't had pain since?
None.
No, when he came to after the first time I saw him after surgery, and he was hurting from the surgery, but I said, do you feel it? And he said, no.
On medications?
They told me to wean myself slowly over several weeks, but I just quit. Had no withdrawal symptoms, nothing, and from the amount of medication I was taking, that was incredible within itself.
Wow. Well, you've heard a wonderful story, and I guess we could talk for much longer about this. And some of you might not have a good ending at this point in your life, but we've learned some things that God's always in control. I want to encourage you to thank Him for being your God no matter what you're going through. And remember that God heals through physicians like Ben Carson. Sometimes He chooses to heal by lifestyle. Sometimes He heals all of a sudden. But God's ultimately there to heal us at some point, so stay close to Him. I want to thank Jim and Valerie Hunt for sharing their testimony. I know this is going to reach others, and many are going to be touched by this. Send in your comments to our website. I'll be happy to share it with them. That's heartwiseministries.org. And until next time, we want to wish you a relationship with the ultimate physician as your best source of treatment.